Shalom and welcome to all those who desire to learn some Hebrew. Today we will be covering the book of Yehuchanan, John, or in modern Hebrew, Yochanan, chapter 6, verses 1 to 4. And my name is Tom Howling, and I hope to bring you through this in a way that you can reasonably follow. So let us begin. And we first have the Nikud chart to help anyone who's relatively new at the Hebrew and understanding how to use the vowels. And then we also have the resources, which we would encourage you to use. They're very helpful. So let us now begin. And as we can see, verse 1 is represented with the first letter of the alphabet. So we have an Aleph, and then we have a Vav, Yod, Hey, Yod, Aleph, Chet, Resh, Yod, Kaf, Nun Sofit, meaning a Nun at the end of a word, which is different than the normal Nun. And then we have a Vav, Yod, Zade, Aleph, Yod, Hey, Vav, Shin, Ayin, Aleph, Lamed, Ayin, Vayet, because there's no dot there, Resh. And also remembering that when we see like a Vav here with a dot, we only pronounce it as the vowel, not as the letter. So let us read. He, and it was, having the root of haya to be, but with the prefix it means and it was, acharei, after, came, so. After so. Translate generally as afterwards. So it was afterwards or after so. Vayet say, and he departed. With the prefix, it makes a completed action. Yahushua or Yahusha. El meaning to. Ver, the opposite side, and I've added of. And now we're going to look at how we come to those. Now, yatsa is a kol verb meaning to exit, to leave, to go outside. And I've added that the vav changes the tense, meaning it's a perfect form. And then we have avar, which is a kol verb to cross, to pass, to transverse. Then we have var as a masculine noun, meaning the past, history, or a record. But the one above is ver, which is a masculine noun, which means the region beyond or the opposite side. And just by change of the vowels, we can see that it changes the grammar, it changes how we translate it to the opposite side of. And the translation, and it came to pass afterwards, Yeshua went out to the other side. So now we can read that. Vehi acharei came vayetzei Yahushua el ever. And the translation, and it was after so, and he departed, Yahusha, to the opposite side of. And then we move on to part B, where we have a yod, mem sofit, that means mem at the end of a word, hey gimel lamed yod lamed, aleph shin resh, lamed tet yod veit resh yod hey. And then it is yum, which means the sea, and you could add of, ha-ga-lil, the sea of the Galil, asher, which, and I've added is, le tivarya, tivarya. It could be to the tivarya or of the tivarya. And of course, the modern translation is Tiberius. That's the how it's often translated, because that's sort of the Greek form. The other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is of the Tiberias. And it's often translated the Sea of Tiberias, if we remember. Okay, so now we can read it. Yum, ha-galil, Asher Letivarya. The Sea of the Galilee, which is of Tivaria. And now we come to 2. It's represented with the second letter of the alphabet, a Vet. And then we have also the letters here. Vav, Yod, Lamed, Kaf, Vav. Aleph, Chet, Resh, Yod, Vav. Hey, Mem, Vav, Nun Safit, which is Nun at the end of a word. Ayin, Mem Safit, Resh, Vet, because there's no dot. Kaf, Yod, Resh, Aleph, Vav. Aleph, Vav, Tav, Tav, Yod, Vav. So we read it now. Vayelku, Vayelku, and they went. Because it comes from, of course, halak, meaning to go. And with the prefixes, it changes the tense to being a completed action, and they went. So it's a perfect form. Acharev, after him. And again, the vav at the end is him. Hamon, meaning the crowd, and I've added of. Which is people. Rav, many. So it's literally the crowd of many people, if we would translate it in English. Ki, for, ra'u, they saw. And of course, the C part is ra'e, which is sort of dropped off. The hay's dropped off. So, and it's third person, they saw. And then we have, now the aleph is silent, as it is here. It is ototaiv, his signs. And down here I've given you achar, which is a prep, which can mean after. And then we got le'achar, which is a verb to be late, to be after. And then we have acher, which is a different form. It's an adjective, means another different second. I'm just giving you that just to show you how it changes with different vowel marks and so on. And then we have rav, as an adjective can mean much, vast, numerous, and sometimes they'll use it as great. So therefore, the translation, a large crowd followed him because they saw the signs. So when they said, and they went, the root of that can also be, hala can also mean to follow. Right, and then we read it. Vayelku acharev hamon rav ki ra'u ototaiv. And they went after him, the crowd of people many, for they saw his signs. And now we come to part B. And we have an aleph, a shin, a resh, ayin, sin this time because the dot's there, hey, ayin, memsafit, hey, chet, vav, lamed, yod, memsafit. And we read it. Ashir, which, sa, he did. Remembering there's no pronoun, then we can add he. And the root of it is asa, which is to do. But it's a perfect form, so he did. Im, meaning with, ha-cholim, the sick, which he did with the signs. So therefore, with the sick, his signs, which he was performing on those who were sick. That's the translation. Now I've given you chala, which is a kol verb to become ill or to sicken. But now I've given you same root, chala, but you notice the vowels are different. It's a feminine noun and it literally means Shabbat bread. And then I've given you also chole, which as an adjective means sick, or it can mean a patient, it can mean bedridden or unwell. So let us begin and read it. Ashir, asa im ha-cholim, which he did with the sick. And now we come to verse 3. It's represented with a gimel, the third letter of the alphabet. And that gives us 3. And then we have vav, yod, ayin, lamed, yod, hey, vav, shin, ayin, lamed, hey, resh, vav, yod, shin, veit, shin, memsa, fit. And we read, vaya'al, and he went up. So if we look down here, its root is Allah, a cul verb to ascend, to go up. But also as a preposition, al is on, upon, over, on top. But it's not a preposition up there. And he went up. And it is Yahushua or Yahusha. Al, now it is upon, because it's like a prep. Ha-har, meaning the mountain. Va-ye-shev, and he sat, sham, there. And down here I've given you yashav, which is a cul verb to sit, to live, to dwell, to stay. And then I've also given you yishev, which is a PL verb, and it means to settle, to inhabit. So I'm giving you just different variations so that when you come across them, you'll understand them a bit better. And so now it is time for us to read that. Vaya'al Yahushua al hahar vayeshev sham. Right? And he went up, Yahusha, upon the mountain, and he sat there. So let us continue. And we're in part B. We've got a Hey, Vav, Aleph. Vav, Tav, Lamed, Mem, Yod, Dalet, Yod, Vav. And then we read it. Who, which means he. Vetal, mi, Dave. And his disciples. With again the Vav at the end being his. So the translation, he sat down with his disciples. And so we can read it. Who? Vetal mi Dave. He and his disciples. And so now we come to verse 4. And it's represented with the Dalet, which is the 4th letter of the alphabet. So we remember that always with Hebrew, the letters have numerical values. And that's why we can also talk about sort of words having numerical values. Right, so we begin. Vav, Yod, Mem, Yod, Hey, Pei, because of the dot, Samek, Chet, Chet, Gimel, Hey, Yod, Hey, Vav, Dalet, Yod, Mem, Safit, Mem at the end of a word. Kuf, Resh, Veit, no dot, Vav, Lamed, Veit, Vav, Aleph. And we read it. Via May. And the days of. Remembering it's a construct form because we have a zere with the yod at the end. And that's usually a construct form. And the days of Ha-Pesach, the Passover, the Pesach. Chag, which is a noun, meaning a feast, and I've added of. Ha-Yehudim, the Jews. Now, just as a note, I've added down here, this verse was added after the 3rd century and is absent from the ancient Greek MSS 472 and 850. And the comment here comes from Michael Rood. This was clearly not Passover, as Yeshua does not go up to Jerusalem, which is according to the Torah he should have done, if it was Pesach. The next chapter, however, opens with preparations for the Feast of tabernacles, or Sukkot. And that's a quote from the Chronological Gospels, page 135. And then we have Karvu, which means they drew near. And we're talking about the days of the feast. They drew near. And then it is Lavo, to come. So therefore, we have the days of the Passover, the feast of the Jews, were to come near. And I've given you karav, which is a kol verb meaning to approach, to draw near, or to come close. And so we now can read that. Right, and we read from here, V'mei ha-pesach chag ha-Yehudim karvu lavo. And of course the translation, and the days of the Passover, a feast of the Jews, they drew near to come. Now we need to emphasize that the Passover is not a feast of the Jews. And that's why this verse may have been altered or added by a translator, because we know from Leviticus, from Vayikra, that it is the feasts are the feasts of Yahweh, not the Jews. So now we can move, and we come now to our revision. And of course, we look at Aleph, and we know that has a value of 1. So we're in verse 1. Vehi, and it was, acharei, came after so, vayetse, and he departed or went out, Yahushua, to Ever, to the other side. And it was after so, and he departed, Yahushua, to the opposite side of. And then we have Yam, which means sea, and we could add of, Ha-Galil, the Sea of Galil. Asher, which, and we could add is, Tivarya, to Tiberias, or of Tiberias. The Sea of the Galil, which is of Tivarya, or Tiberias. And then we have a Vayet, which we know is the second letter of the alphabet. So we're in verse 2. Vayelku, and they went. Acharev, meaning after him. Hamon, the crowd, and we could say of. Rav, people many, or many people, a crowd of many people. Kifo, ra'u, they saw. It's a perfect form. Ototayev, his signs, or his miracle. Right? And they went after him, the crowd of people many, for they saw his signs. And so we're in part B now, and it is Asher, which Asa, he did, im with ha-cholem, meaning the sick, because we have a hey in front of it, so it's the sick, which he did, and it's he because there's no pronoun there, with the sick. And then we have Gimel, which is the third letter of the alphabet. So we're in verse 3. Vaya'al, and he went up, because Allah means to go up, to ascend. Yahushua, al meaning upon, ha-har, the mountain, va-yeshev, and he sat, sham, there. And he went up, Yeshua, upon the mountain, and he sat there. Who? He that told me Dave and his disciples. He and his disciples. And so we come to a dalet, which we know is the fourth letter of the alphabet, so we know it has a value of 4, so we're in verse 4. V'yamei, and the days, ha-pesach, the Passover, so the days of the Passover, because of the ending here of the Passover, chag, a feast, and we could add of, ha-Yehudim, the Jews, and we know it isn't a feast of the Jews, it's a feast of Yahweh. Karvu, they drew near, meaning the days. Lavo, to come. And the days of the Passover, a feast of the Jews, they drew near to come. And then we come, now that we've completed those 4 verses, we want to emphasize the use of the vowels. This is a kamatz, and just by the sound of the word, we can recognize that the A sound, the first vowel that we hear is the sound it makes. It's a longer A, kamatz. And then we have this one, which is called a patak. And we can hear that the A is short. So it's a short A. And then we have zere. So again, it's a longer E sound. And then we have segol, which we can hear as a shorter E sound. Then we have shava. Well, that breaks up the word into its syllables. So it helps us pronounce the word. And that's why I color code and I put all those marks there to help us pronounce. And then we have cholam, and that is the O sound up there. Then we have shuruk, and as you can hear, it's like a shorter U sound. And then we have kubutz, which we can hear as a longer U sound. Then we have a combination of shavar and segol. It's called a kataf segol, where the segol follows the break in syllables. Then we have chirek, which is your I sound. And then we have a combination of patak and a shavar. So after the shavar is followed by a short A sound. It's called a kataf patak. And then finally we have a shavar with a kamatz. And it's called a kataf kamatz. Again, it's a longer A sound followed after the shavar. And so we finally come to the last part. And again, I must repeat the useful resources because they are essential if you are to learn, because this website gives us transliteration, translation. It gives you everything to help you work out. And now it may not always be 100% correct, and that's why we also give you the Do It in Hebrew dictionary, because that will help you work out what the root word is. Even though it's maybe a more modern Hebrew dictionary, it will help exceedingly. So we will now go through the letters and their value, and we're going to go backwards because that makes us think of the actual letters rather than just remembering a sequence. So we go. Tav has a value of 400, Shin 300, Resh 200, Kuf 100, Zade 90, Pei or Fei 80, Ayin 70, Samek 60, Nun 50, Mem 40, Lamed 30, Kaf 20, Yod 10, Tet 9, Chet 8, Zion 7, Vav 6, Hey 5, Dalet 4, Gimel 3, Vayet 2, and Aleph 1. And the aim of that is that next time you can also look at gematria, which is using words working out their numerical value based on the value of the letters and seeing what other words link to that number. And it's amazing how we can find some interesting thoughts from that. Now, we would like to thank you for joining us, and we do pray that these lessons truly inspire you to learn more, because why do we learn Hebrew? We know it is the Lashon HaKodesh, the holy tongue, but even more than that, we like to see what the meanings of words are, because sometimes translations lose something. And by learning what the words mean and getting a deeper understanding of it, it will truly bless us. So we'd like to thank you for joining us, and we want to wish you a Shavua Tov, which means a good 7 or a good week, because its root is in the word 7, right? So it's a good week, and we want to bless you in the name of our Messiah, Yeshua or Yahusha, depending how you pronounce it. And we want to bless you in his great and glorious name. Amen.